Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about a lot of things this morning, especially star kinds of things or astrology types of things, right? um, Welcome to the show. I hope you all had a great weekend. It is an interesting week this week. We start out with a very powerful full moon. And then throughout the week, we have a whole host of planetary transits that are occurring, aspects that are happening between planets that seem kind of to stir the pot, if you will, right? Be a little bit chaotic. Not in a bad way necessarily, but certainly in a way that, stirs the pot, brings things up, makes us think, and what have you. But it all begins today with this full moon. And this is called the full wolf moon, the wolf moon from Native American roots, where they believed that the wolves were more active during the month of January or during the January full moon. And so we get the full wolf moon. Um, and there's so much to talk about with this full moon. I mean, layers of things going on in this moon. For instance, it occurred to me over the weekend that Mars, the planet of fire, the planet of action and catalyzing things and creating havoc, sometimes warrior like in his nature, um, is out of bounds in astrology. And out of bounds planet is has a more extreme expression of itself. So you can take then Mars action and put it over the top, right? With Mars retrograde in um, out of bounds territory, then you can expect there's more subversion going on or something beneath the surface that maybe we can't see. And of course, as it is a fire planet, I can't help but think about the California fires and how, first of all, there's a whole bunch of things about different theories about why the fires got so bad or what have you. But if you think of that as the Mars in retrograde and the fire as Mars out of bounds, you can see that it's the crossroads of something pretty major and has long-lasting impacts, not none the least of which is for each individual there who lost a house or lost loved ones, lost their whole anchor. This is a Cancer full moon, which is about home and family and safety and security, and all of those things have been wiped out for thousands of people down there. And you hear a lot of blame game going on in the news, right? Every story has oh, it's about the fire hydrants. Oh, they cut the funds to the fire department. Oh, blah, 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 on and on and on. There's time later for looking at causes and, finding reasons. But right now, it should be more about how do we help the people that have been impacted in all of this and how do we get those fires put out? I mean, literally, crews are coming from all around the other states, right? Even Washington sent crews down to help put out fires, Oregon, Idaho, to help, right, with the fire efforts. Let's get that done first. But I'm telling you, Mars is out of bounds until we get to the third week, next week, fourth week, I guess. Well, third full week of the month. So we still have Mars to contend with. Not that I'm saying there will be more fires or that fires will get worse. It isn't just that, right? The fire is a symbol of what's happening. It's the conflagration of this out of bounds Mars. But underneath that, when the fire settles, right, when they can contain that, when the winds die down, um, what's left is how do we prevent this from happening again? I don't even think it pays us to do the blame game, right? I don't think it pays us to blame the mayor or blame the whatevers, right? It just doesn't help. It can help to look at, well, these are some of the things that caused it, and these are some of the things that we could do in the future. So keep that in mind. But with Mars out of bounds And it isn't just Mars out of bounds. Mercury is out of bounds. Mercury is communication, right? It's information. It is how we share with one another. It's ideas, and it's out of bounds, which amps up the rhetoric, right? The words and all of that. So we have, this communication that seems way out of the ordinary. And Mercury is also out of bounds during the full moon today. And then, just to add fun, the moon is also out of bounds. She is sitting at about a degree or so out of bounds. That amps up the emotional energy, right? The moon represents our emotions and how we feel. And the moon is in a sign that she rules, which gives her more power, more oomph. But out of bounds, it means that there can be over the top emotional expressions. So try to keep all that in mind as we hear about all of this stuff, right? Um, it runs the gamut from people who are underplaying the issue to people who are overplaying the issue. And somewhere in between is the truth, right? Somewhere in between is the real of what is going on. And it is horrific. Um, it's terrible. I grew up down there. I'm watching places I used to hang out burn down. It's crazy. Um, but yet it was time for whatever reason for this to happen. And I doubt this will be the last that we hear of this issue. I doubt that this will be the last that we see of major conflagration type things happening, whether that comes through fire, flood, earthquake, whatever, right? This is going to be that kind of year, things shaking us to the ground and literally giving us the opportunity, as the word for the year I shared with all of you was phoenixing, right? Sometimes you have to burn it all down in order to build it back up in a more sustainable, livable, uh, standing the test of time sort of way. And I hate to see that it's happened like this, right? But there we have it. So today, this afternoon, this evening, there is a full moon at 24 degrees of Cancer. And a theme that I think is very apropos for this particular full moon is it is a catalyst for transformation. And the astrological aspects are kind of interesting for this full moon as well, as we have the moon at 24 degrees Cancer opposite of the sun, also at 24 degrees, but of Capricorn. This is an axis that forces us to balance our work life or professional life, career, the worldly self with the home and family, and what makes us feel safe and secure, and what bonds us together, right? As a community, maybe as a tribe, as a family in particular. And the moon and the sun are also squaring, think tension, Eris in Aries, right? The goddess of discord, and also squaring the black moon Lilith in Libra, opposite of Aries. And this forms what is called a Cardinal Grand Cross, which is already under any circumstances going to be a difficult, if you will, aspect pattern or configuration. It's going to bring a lot of tension to the surface, a lot of potentially buried emotional energy to the surface. And then we have the moon in a sextile and the sun in a trine to Uranus. So Uranus is still in Taurus. So we have, this is an earth sign. It is an earth sign that is sometimes fixed in its comfort zone. Not sometimes, often fixed in its comfort zone. And the opportunity here with the full moon might be to displace some of us from that fixed comfort zone and cause us to make changes, right, in our lives, changes. And, individually, but also collectively, right? What kind of changes do we need to make to implement a better fire policy, perhaps, or things like that? And then, as I said at the top of the show here, that Moon, Mercury, Mars are all out of bounds during this lunation. So that's like lighting the match, right, to the fire. Now, I do think because Cancer is water, that perhaps we're going to see the fires die down, become more contained between now and the new moon, which is just kind of logical anyway. But as the fires die down, then the real work of reconstruction begins, right? And that's also modeled here in this particular full moon, as Cancer literally is kind of a building sign. So is Taurus, right? These are two signs, Cancer and Taurus. Uranus is in Taurus, the full moon in Cancer, that need safety and security. And that safety and security really comes from feeling a home, right? Being belonging, having that place of comfort, having those people around us, that kind of thing. So it does kind of feel like this will be an extensive rebuild, an expensive, yes, but extensive phoenixing time as the months go by. So this full moon activates the powerful cardinal cross, and we call it cardinal because the signs Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn are all cardinal signs. And cardinal refers to initiating, right? This is initiating energy. And the cardinal cross means that we have this stable sense of stress or tension coming through with this lunation or this period of time that we are going to have to contend with, right? It's heightened tension. And the opposition between the nurturing Cancer moon and the pragmatic Capricorn sun highlights themes of balancing emotional needs with our professional and external responsibilities, right? That's for everybody. Now, the squares to Eris in Aries and to the Black Moon in Libra brings sort of this raw, unfiltered energy to the surface. These are oh, dare I say, the bitches of the zodiac here, right? These are the qualities that have been pushed down, that have been hidden away, the rage, right? The of the divine feminine, the freedom of the divine feminine. So there's this buried, hidden rage, and thinking of the earth as a divine feminine energy, is it the rage of the planet that is had been being held in check, that is now being released, the lid coming off, as it were? So this configuration may challenge all of our relationships, calling for honesty, calling for courage, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. We have to be able to face them. There will be more uncomfortable truths that we have to face. And it's a chance for us to reclaim our personal power while we foster deeper connections with the people around us, right? Or based on authenticity and mutual respect, right? Not just the superficial energies. And then it is harmonious. A sextile and a trine are both harmonious aspects to Uranus and Taurus, gives us this silver lining, if you will, encouraging us to come up with innovative solutions, to see the problem as outside the box, like outside looking back in, and then to create solutions that are new, that are unique, maybe even just untried, right? Things that we've never done before. So we're being urged, as well as the outer world is being urged, to embrace change and to be open about it, to be okay with that, and then to ground ourselves into what feels stable, right? And know that that stability is always changing, right? Stability is, if you think stability is it's always steady, it's not at all that, right? It isn't at all. So, adding Mercury, the moon, and Mars out of bounds, that means our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions may feel unorthodox or amplified or different, right? Kind of eccentric, even maybe. So use this time of this full moon to think creatively and to act decisively, even if it's outside your normal comfort zone. That's the high side of this full moon because it's a catalyst energy, right? This is catalyst for change, for transformation, literally the deeper kind of change, not just superficial, but pretty darn deep, right? Um, so I'm going to show you the chart. Hold on, let me see if I could do this really quickly. Um, Here we go. Very good. So now you guys can see this chart. And let me move that there. And hopefully, guys, you can see it. It's pretty graphic in your face kind of chart, right? So I highlighted in orange, which turns out looking yellow, but here it is. This is the cardinal square. We have the sun or moon, excuse me, here in Cancer, conjunct Mars, right? So the moon, emotions, and Mars, catalyzing energy, are in a conjunction. They are sharing the same space basically in the sky. And then those two are opposing the sun, who is kind of, he's got the part of fortune next to him and Pallas Athena next to him, but he's kind of not, really involved with any of the inner planets. And then both of these are square to Eris up here at 24 degrees of Aries and the black moon Lilith down here at almost 2200, I think it is, degrees of Libra. So we get what is called this grand square. And you'll note, like, look, there's a lot of energy going on in this part, this arm of the Grand Cross, excuse me, Grand Square, Grand Cross. And that's partly because you have numbers of planets here. It's not just Moon, it's Moon and it's Mars, it's Eris, and it's Chiron. Chiron is also pretty close to being a part of this Cardinal Grand Cross, and the Sun and all of that. But what's lighter here is the Black Moon Lilith. And the out of bounds planets are the Moon and Mercury. Mercury's over here in Capricorn, but in earlier degrees of Capricorn. So he's not really conjunct the sun. And of course, Mars conjunct the moon over here. So we have these planets that are all in Cancer or Capricorn, right? Moon is in Cancer, Mars is in Cancer, the Mercury is in Capricorn. So it's very much kind of across an axis of your own personal chart. So if you know where Cancer is in your chart and you know where Capricorn is, this is where this heightened energy is coming through. Okay. So when celestial bodies are out of bounds, they exceed the sun's declination. It's a technical kind of thing to talk about in terms of what does it mean, but it means typically that the planet is beyond 23.27 degrees north or south of the celestial equator. And this correlates with behavior or energy that sort of goes out of bounds, right? Goes over the top. It might feel unconventional, it's boundary pushing, and even rebellious. So when we're talking about these three planets, Moon, Mars, and Mercury being out of bounds during a full moon, which is already amped up energy, we're talking about an amplification process of all of these energies. So, every little thing gets bigger, faster, and in a way that is very surprising, even shocking, right? So here are some of the impacts of the out of bounds planets. Heightened sensitivity to your surroundings. This is individual now for you as an individual, being more sensitive to where you are. Um, and it leads us to more gut instinct, more intuitive knowing, and more emotional awareness. So that could be a really good thing, right? Being very clear about what it is that's going on for you personally. There's a deep pull toward nurturing for us during this time, protecting ourselves, even protecting others, but with a more creative or unconventional approach, doing it differently. Emotional reactions may be feeling larger than life. And here's where we have the power, right? Because I was talking with a friend yesterday, and she said she was pretty amazed at how, and other people are noticing how in her life that she isn't as reactive as she used to be, where, something that angers her or frustrates her doesn't get over the top in that. And she's able, and then people are like, well, wow, why I'm surprised you didn't, get mad or get upset. And she's looking at her own self going, right, but I could choose how I wanted to respond to the situation. And this is the biggest lesson for all of us, is that we get to choose how we're going to respond, how we're going to show up in the face of these emotional triggers. And, these emotional reactions that we have are what is evolving into responses, not reactions. Reactions are kind of gut check, knee jerk. Um, Responses take more time, even if it's just a little bit of time, just a little bit of time to take a breath, even before you act or before you say. Um, and in being able to do this, we get to moderate the impact of these emotional things that happen to us or that trigger us in some way. And that helps us to push past our usual boundaries, or helps us to feel more vulnerable, to feel that it's okay to be vulnerable, right? And this whole full moon out of bounds 3 planets can really help us to break through and to maybe understand what our emotional needs are, what it is that we are responding to or reacting to. And it can yet overwhelm us if we don't ground ourselves, right? I can't even imagine being down in LA right now, looking at the sky, looking at the devastation. If you happen to be someone that lives near, those neighborhoods, a couple of you out there I know do. And being on the ground and experiencing this can be a whole lot different than me up here in Washington watching what's happening from far away. So watch out for being overwhelmed. But you also, need to take care of yourself. This is how we care for ourselves. We allow ourselves to express the emotion, but in a safe way, right? Not by, you know, um, you know, reacting to other people, or being angry and throwing a fit, but really just working through what it is we're feeling. And we do that by staying grounded. That's going to be another big deal with this moon, is how do we stay grounded? Okay. And then Mercury. Mercury represents communication, thought, and perception, and he's out of bounds in Capricorn, and it sharpens our intellect, right? So our minds are working quite sharply, but breaks the traditional rules of logic and communication. And it allows maybe for innovative ideas to spring forth, but can also come across as overly blunt or erratic, right? Thought processes being erratic, up and down, right? Or things feeling out of sorts and overwhelmed because of the moon, and leading us to think thoughts that push us outside of those boundaries again. But the impacts, really, with an out of bounds Mercury possibly brings a fresh perspective on practical matters, allowing us to think outside of the box. The higher octave, if you will, of Mercury is Uranus. And, that's a planet that awakens and takes us into that out of the box thinking, right? Being able to see things from other points of view. Communication during this time can feel very bold, and it can feel unusually candid. It can feel unusually horrible, right? Conversations could challenge the status quo, right? People saying and doing things that we consider not normal. It can highlight where our outdated thinking needs to shift, right? What is outdated thinking? It's thoughts that keep going around and around the wheel, right? Without having any brilliant solution to the problem. So this also can stir mental anxiousness or restlessness, and it can cause difficulty for us to focus on linear tasks. I've noticed that already for me, maybe because I'm Mercury ruled, Mercury in Cancer in my own natal chart. So opposing the placement of Mercury in Capricorn right now, where my mind, I can't keep my mind in this linear place. It wants to go everywhere. So literally, doing this show this morning for me feels like I'm moving through mud, right? Because I'm having to really work hard to stay on track, right? So you guys might be feeling that. But also allow yourselves to let your mind wander sometimes outside of the traditional way that you think, right? Try to notice when you're thinking differently, or when you're thinking more expansively, or notice when you're caught up in a thinking pattern that doesn't serve you anymore, right? Or when you're caught up in linear thinking that doesn't see the world as systemic, or see the world as a system of different moving parts. Mars, now drive and ambition and energy and action out of bounds is also a problem, right? He has this, he's in Cancer and he's out of bounds, right? Out of bounds. So he might feel like he's pushing your emotional boundaries at this point. He's conjunct the moon, right? So we might feel like we are, fine one minute, and then the next minute we're crying or we're laughing hysterical. We have, different ways of expressing this Mars energy, and it's amplified. What we want to keep watch over is not making that amplified emotional energy be directed at those we love, or at anybody for that matter, right? Your emotions are your own. Feeling your emotions is absolutely vital, but spilling them outward onto other people is not okay, right? That's where we get into trouble, because that becomes reactive versus responsive. So, in the shadow of this energy, we can start to feel frustration, impatience, and impulsivity when things don't progress as we planned, or aren't moving in the direction that we thought they would be. And that impulsive energy can cause all kinds of problems, from emotional upsets to taking action on things that were not meant to be taken action on yet. So we have to be very careful when we have planets out of bounds, because that energy gets amplified. So if we take and look at these together as a trio of Moon, Mars, and Mercury, all out of bounds, OOB, out of bounds, then we can make a synergy of this energy, right? We can see how we can use these energies, unconventional energies, together um, as a potent way of moving outside of the norm, doing things differently. Um, we could take the moon's emotional intensity, combine it with Mercury's unconventional thinking and Mars's ambitious drive, creating a potent mix of innovative ideas and bold action, but in a way that is helping us to break free of the old constraints. Right. And by old constraints, it could be old emotions, it could be old beliefs, it could be things around you that have held you tight to something. We feel an urge at this point to push past the limits during this full moon period. And whether that's emotional or mental or physical, could be all three. It's time to explore uncharted territory in your life, but be mindful of recklessness, right? It's great to explore, but don't inadvertently fall off a cliff while you're exploring. Now, this energy can also be unpredictable. If we're mixing these three together, it can amplify the unpredictable energy of the Cardinal Cross, which we've yet to really break down too much yet. So, expect situations to feel more dynamic, more surprising or shocking, even, and more chaotic than usual. It's just the way it is at this moment in time. And what can we do about this? Well, during this full moon, definitely ground yourself, right? Do whatever it is that you do that helps you to stabilize your emotions, your thoughts, and your actions. Maybe spend more time in nature, get some exercise to work out the frustration. Embrace innovation, right? And I'm not saying you have to go all out and be a tech head, but definitely start to look at, what are some of the old concepts in your life that you're dealing with, and where do you need to push outside of those boundaries? Looking at where this is in your chart, by the way, can be very helpful for that, right? So if it's across your first and seventh house, let's say, m- um, that would mean that you have to take a look at your own personality, your own personhood, in the context of relationships, and how do you either need to innovate your thinking and elevate and aspire to new heights, or where do you need to merge better into the relationships in your life? It's, up to where it is in your chart, how this will play out. So ask yourself, what is what's guide what are you being guided to change in your life? Where are you being guided to grow in your life? Right? Underlying all of this is a need for something to give, something to change. So embrace the unconventional, embrace change, break free of limitations, bring clarity and purpose to your actions, whatever they're going to be. Because right now there's this giant spotlight and these mass amplified energies just waiting for you to harness, to use for your own good, right? For your own consciousness. All right. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so I can go back and see. Exit full screen. There we go. I want to see about comments here and say good morning to everybody. Good morning to Diana and Joan Durkee and Narges. Good morning to you, Asa, Teddy, and Christine, J-Lo, and TD Hawk. Good morning to you. J-Lo said, yes, I noticed that yesterday. We have a few. I don't remember what we were talking about then, J-Lo. Amanda J says hello. Christine says, I just remembered to hit the like button. Oh, yes. Thank you all for that reminder. If you are watching this broadcast on Facebook, hit the like button. If you're watching this broadcast on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button. And in all cases, wherever, whenever you're listening to this, please share it with your friends and family, your networks, etc. Thank you all for the reminder. Leilani, good morning to you. Let's get those likes up, she says. I love it. And let's see, Kiki, good morning to you. Gracious greetings. All right, no questions. So I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, I think you're right. I think Canadian firefighters are also coming down to California to help. I think that it's just an amazing thing to see. It's too bad that we can't all come together like this on a daily basis, instead of just during crises, right? Wouldn't it be nice if every day we were all in like this? But we're learning, right? We're learning. So I'm going to go back and share my screen again, so that entire screen so you guys can see the chart while we're talking. So now I want to go into this cardinal cross. And a cardinal cross, as I said, is when you have planets in points that are 90 degrees from each other and in opposition to each other. And they are cardinal because of the signs that they are in and the nature of the energy of those signs. So Aries and Capricorn and Libra and Cancer are all cardinal signs, which means they are kind of initiating energies. You might notice too that they all initiate because they open up the seasons, right? Aries opens up spring, Cancer summer, Libra fall, at least in the northern hemisphere, and Capricorn winter. So they're cardinal. They're like gateways that we walk through that open us up to new energies of a seasonal sort of nature. And as initiating energies, they're open invitations for us to behave differently or to embrace something new and to make the changes that we need to make in order to be our best selves. So the cardinal cross, while it is very activated and it is highly energetic and can be very tension filled, it has a purpose, and that is to push us into the future, push us into new energies. So it's intense, yes, right? There is an intensity around a cardinal cross, any cross, but a cardinal cross in particular. And it creates this dynamic tension that forces movement in our lives. It forces change and it forces the resolution of conflicting energies. All of these energies are in conflict, right? Even the ones that are opposing one another. Eris opposing Black Moon Lilith, the sun opposing this, or I mean, the sun on this side opposing the moon and Mars. They're in conflict, right? In an opposition, they are, kind of moving in opposite directions. And in a square, there is like an inherent anxiousness about that energy, attention that's kind of pushing us to do something, to change something, to be different. So when we have all of them sitting like this in a cardinal cross, it just amplifies the themes of each one of the planets. Okay. And this one happens to call us to a balance between personal empowerment, relationships, emotion, and purpose, right? We have these four things that are pulling us in these different directions. So, as I said, cardinal signs are the initiators of the zodiac. They spark action, if you will. They introduce new cycles, new information, new emotional energy, right? They demand progress. They want movement. However, it does kind of create a tug of war, like which direction should we go in? Because, planets are also in opposition to one another. They're pulling in a different direction. For example, the sun pulling toward the Capricorn direction of work and profession and authenticity and standing in one's authority. And Cancer, the moon and Mars pulling us more into the protect, defend, grow, nurture, be home with family and tradition, right? So there's this opposition going on as well during this time. And it challenges us to find a harmony between all of these energies. That's not necessarily easy. It's tension filled. And it's not inherently negative. I don't mean to say anything about this is negative. It's really not. Um, it's a potent catalyst for growth, for transformation, and for breakthroughs, right? In all of our lives, but also in the collective, the bigger picture. So, the sun, let's talk about the sun first. In Capricorn represents discipline and structure, ambition, but also if we look at it through Capricornia, right, the reimagined feminine energy of Capricorn, we get this energy of legacy, of sustainability, of doing what's the best for the most number of people, right? Building a structure that, a form even, that lasts and stands the test of time. Okay, so we have that. It focuses on the external, the goals, the dreams, the ambitions, the long term plans, but it also brings our attention to the need for leadership, being the leader in your own life, but also self mastery, right? It does bring us into that, right? The moon in Cancer, the opposite end over here, represents our emotions, and our intuition and our ability to nurture and care, both for ourselves and for others. And it focuses on our inner needs, right? The home and the family and how we bond and how we, coexist with others. And it highlights the importance of emotional security and self care. Eris, Eris and Aries, she's up here. Eris represents disruption and rebellion and the fight for fairness, right? She mostly got pissed off in the legends because she was left out, right? She was marginalized. And she struck back in revenge because she had been left out, because she had been marginalized. So she focuses on challenging our societal norms, the thoughts we have around intolerance and marginalization, and exposes truths. So that'll be interesting to see how she plays out. She adds this fiery confrontational energy to the mix, and it demands authenticity, right? Being true. Then the Black Moon and Lilith, she's over here at the other side of the cross, and she is the representation of the shadow self or the suppressed desires that we have, our primal instincts. And there's so many interesting legends about the Black Moon Lilith and, how this piece came to be so important. How she, in the original Garden of Eden, it wasn't Eve who came with Adam, it was Lilith. And because she refused to submit to Adam and to his whims and his wills and desires, she was thrown out of the Garden of Eden. And thus, instead of being two different entities that were born separately with their own will and their own amazing journeys, then Eve becomes made out of Adam, right? So this is legend. This isn't truth. This is legend. So we can see then where sort of the subjugation of the divine feminine takes place. So she really represents that part of us that in the main, not just women, but the main energies that have been suppressed. And she focuses then on relationships and on equality and on hidden power dynamics. She really brings intensity to interpersonal dynamics. She asks us to confront hidden truths. She is also permission. She gives us permission to be our true authentic selves. And in the sign of Libra, that is so interesting, don't you think? Because Libra is well known as the people pleasing sign, right? Hiding themselves within the relationship and then kind of subverting their own needs, right? Their own desires. So her presence in Libra is a very big reminder to all of us that, relationships are built on two, right? Two individuals with their own paths, their own purpose that can come together in relationship where each one is supported to their own journeys, right? To their own power. So we're confronting the hidden truths that have hidden our own power from us during this moon. So the combinations, if we look at the combinations here, the emotional push pull between the sun and the moon, right? The full moon already amplifies the tension between Capricorn's need for external achievement to be seen as, an authority out in the world, and Cancer's focus on emotional security, the inner world. So the Grand Cross heightens the divide a bit, right? There's that. Forcing us sort of to balance ambition with self care and the needs of others, right? So we're balancing these things, not going one way or the other, but balancing them. And then we have disruption and we have truth, Eris and Aries, where she brings that fiery edge to this whole full moon energy, urging us to confront areas where we've been complicit in maintaining outdated systems or outdated beliefs or personal patterns that hold us to the old rather than allowing us to be untethered to move toward the future. This is about claiming individuality, fighting for fairness, and it means disrupting the status quo. That's her whole job, right? That's her whole job. And there isn't a person on the planet right now who doesn't already have Eris in Aries. We all do. She takes 500 years to go through a sign. And we are in the middle of that transit that she has. So every planet or every person on the planet is resonating with this need to individuate, right? To be your true self, to be your authentic self. Now, there's also shadow work within our relationships here with the Black Moon Lilith in Libra. She's just adding a layer of intensity, particularly in our relationships, especially relationships that are out of balance or out of whack. Suppressing where we've suppressed our emotions within those relationships, or where there are hidden power struggles within the relationship that we have to deal with. And there's a call to confront the truth of what's lurking beneath that surface, what's down there, and both within ourselves, but also in how we relate to others. It's mutual, right? And then the cardinal energy is the catalyst for change, as well as Mars retrograde in that cardinal cross, demanding action. So the Grand Cross won't let us stay stagnant. And we're being called to navigate tension and create lasting change, but change of an innovative nature, of a new nature. The question is, how can we integrate emotional authenticity, right? The whole Cancer energy, personal truths with Aries, relational fairness in Libra, and practical ambition in Capricorn, right? That's the big deal. But also potential challenges now. How does this impact this full moon? Well, overwhelm. I mean that's a like a theme that keeps coming back to me. The competing energies may make it difficult to prioritize or decide which direction to take. So you may feel kind of like, oh, where do I go? What do I do? And I'm going to tell you, the way to figure that out is to know what your type and strategy is in your human design, because your type and your strategy give you a decision-making tool along with your authority, right? So if you don't know what those terms mean, you need to look them up. You need to look me up, and I can help you understand that better. There's emotional intensity. We don't get away from that, right? The moon in Cancer and Lilith in Libra can bring up deep seated fears, insecurity, places where we've felt rejected, where we have unresolved or unresolved emotional wounds, or even unacknowledged emotional wounds, right? They're unresolved because we haven't acknowledged them. So be willing to take a look there. Conflict. Eris in Aries provokes confrontation, and especially in Aries or areas of your life where fairness and individuality are at odds with society or within your relationships. So this is a time to balance, right? Balance, balance, balance. But balance isn't static, right? As I've been telling my clients in the Success Codex, balance is great, but it isn't static, right? If you try to balance on one foot, just try it. Stand up behind the scenes here. Stand up on and balance on one foot. What you'll notice is you're never still, right? Your body is going through a million different calculations on how to maintain that balance. That means balance isn't something that gets stagnant or rigid. It isn't possible, right? So balance means that we are able to move and flow. We're going with the flow or flowing with the go. Balance yourself with others, right? With your goals and the goals of the greater collective. Embrace disruption and growth, right? If you can't beat them, join them, kind of thing, right? Where don't fight against the flow of energy, because that just creates more tension and more conflict and frustration. If Eris or Lilith stir up something within you, ask what it's teaching you about authenticity, about fairness, about your boundaries, about your relationships, or about yourself. Do shadow work. This is a great time to do shadow work. Use the time to examine the areas of imbalances in your life, in your relationships, your power dynamics, what truths need to be brought to light, right? What's been missing? And then ground yourself. Again, grounding, right? The grounding is so important here. And with cardinal energy, this is a final thought on the cardinal cross. With cardinal energy, the key is to not overanalyze or get too much in your head and think about what's happening. This is a time to act with intention, to act with focus on small yet practical steps to align yourself with your values, or to align your life with your values, right? You don't have to take big momentous steps. This probably isn't the right time for that, but little steps, right, that get you moving forward, because staying stuck in your mind is not what this time is all about. It's not what this full moon is all about today. So the cardinal cross isn't easy, that's for sure. But it is profoundly transformative and opens up doors, right? At least in four different directions, potentially all four directions at once, for each of us in our lives. And we come out of this full moon time maybe empowered, maybe uncharacteristically authentic in the way that we show up in our lives. That would be the highest and best, I think, of all of that full moon energy. All right. Now, questions. I'm going to stop sharing here for a moment and exit the full screen. Christine, if we have Black Moon Lilith and Eris conjunct natal Aries, how does that work with this opposition? Well, it means that you're being drawn in to look at the conflicts that have been in opposition to one another, right? That have pulled you in two different directions. And it can actually heighten, the frustration. But if you've already worked through some of those shadow energies that are, or you're being seen, that you're seeing or being shown, um, it's a possibility that this just goes like smooth butter for you, right? Yes, I see the shadow. Yes, I've been working on this. I will continue to work on this. Taking responsibility for all of your actions and your beliefs and your steps toward being your authentic self. So, yeah, it will amplify it somewhat, but also if you're already in process of doing the work, it doesn't mean that it's going to be worse for you or more unwieldy to get through. So, I hope that helps. Um, so, in the last few minutes I have here today, I want to talk about where the full moon and Earth are, moon, Earth, and sun are in our human design during the same time, because it's in an interesting combination of gates. So, the week's energy through your human design puts the sun in the gate 61, which is sitting up on the head center, and we call it the gate of wonder. And the moon and Earth are in the conjunction at gate 62, which is the gate of details. And the gate 62 is sitting on the throat center. So it has a lot to do with communication and how we manifest things, how we communicate our dreams, how we make things real. So there's this intriguing dynamic at play between the two gates, I think, blending the energy of inspiration that comes from the gate 62, the sun's placement in Capricorn, and deep questioning, because that particular gate always asks the question, why? 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 Like a 2-year-old, right? Why? Why? And it is blending that questioning and that inspirational energy with the need for practical articulation and focus, right? So we have, what feels like a very earthy energy that is blending sort of the divine inspiration, the idea realm into the physical realm. So the 61, it sits on the head center and is about accessing higher levels of consciousness, right? And awareness. It sits, if you look at it in your chart, you can see that part of the center sits in the head, in the body, but the rest of it, the point of it is up above. So it's almost like this antenna, if you will, that is, or a receiver that is receiving information or ideas that come from the stream of consciousness, that come from on high, that come from your higher self, that come from the collective, right? And it brings us often this awe energy, the energy of wonder and sort of, magic and the mystical. Then we become inspired by this energy. And it's energy that asks profound questions that then lead us to contemplation and to inner revelation, right? Seeing something from within. And during this full moon, the sun's position here invites you to an illumination, if you will, of deeper truths and the why behind your experiences. And it can also provide mental pressure. Here's the thing, that center is a pressure center, and it pressures us to find answers, to find clarity, which might feel intense during the cardinal cross energy that's going on. And it's almost a call for us to get out of our heads, but at the same time, using the mind and its thinking and its questioning to inspire us, right? Inspiring our next steps. Now, the gate 62 is called the gate of details or the gate of precision in quantum human design. And this is where the Earth and the moon are both sitting. And the 62 on the throat center focuses on the practicality of bringing ideas into form. So, to bring ideas into form, we have to have a plan, we have to have the details, we have to see the big picture as well as the little picture, right? The forest for the trees, and the forest and the trees. And then through clear expression and organization, bring our ideas to life, right? That's the key here. And it takes the abstract concepts, the gate 62 does, generated by the gate 61, and grounds them into actionable, understandable details. So the 62 is the balance, if you will, to the sun's getting inspired by all of the ideas and things that are out there. So this gate, the 62, adds a bit of structure and form, kind of a method for you to follow to get to how do I bring this into reality. So the interaction between these two is sort of a dance between the abstract and the practical, right? Bringing in both. So the illumination of insight that comes from the gate 61 and the full moon shining a light on deeper questions that you may have about your life, about your purpose, about what comes next, about who am I, right? The energy encourages us to contemplate those questions and what's beneath the surface of our current challenges or our current goals. Why am I doing what am I? Why am I doing what I'm doing, right? Or why am I not doing what it is I want to do? Because that's often happening as well. So grounding vision into reality is really about the energy of this particular moon. And there's a challenge here, of course, with all of this. It comes with the stress of the Cardinal Cross. It comes with the extremity of the Moon, Mercury, and Mars being out of bounds. And, during this full moon time, we must reflect. We have to take the time to reflect on a question or on an idea that feels expansive or profound for us. Each individual is going to be different for each of you. And then use journaling or verbal processing or whatever way it is that you tap into your inner knowing, um, so that you can ground that vision into reality over time. And the synergy between the gates can lead to practical inspiration and also meaningful action. Right. So that is also not just the energy of the full moon, but is the energy for the week ahead. And that takes us through the 15th, which is actually on Wednesday. So we've had this energy activated for a bit. And then later in the week, the sun and earth move into the storytelling energy gates, right? Where we begin to really look at the story to distill maybe a new story out of everything that we have been talking about or hearing or contemplating in our own lives. So it'll be an interesting week to be sure. Not something that I can give you all of the details about right this moment. So let me see. Questions? Anything else? No? Good, 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 good. So remember too, in your human design, uh, you might have the gate 61 where the sun is already defined in your chart. That would mean it's about your birthday time, right? So this is a solar return for you, especially if it's the sun that you have at 61. If it's another planet, then you're adding to the load, right? So let's say you have Mercury at your gate 61 and now the sun comes there. Now you're joining some powerful light with communication, right? So if you have it already defined, you're adding energy. If it's an open gate that you have in your natal chart, it's open because it's white, doesn't have any planetary energy sitting there, then this is new energy for you, right? To tap into. It's yours to do with what you will. So it'll be like an opportunity to be inspired or to be inspirational and all of that. The gate 62 on the throat center, same thing. If it's open, you are maybe suddenly able to be more practical and organized in the way that you put together your next steps. If it's already defined by another planet, then it is adding to the load, right? Whatever is there is being a little bit amplified by the energy of the planet. So it really all comes down to knowing yourself, right? Knowing your human design, knowing your astrology, knowing yourself. So hopefully, um, since this morning, I've given you some insight that will help you know yourself better. All right. I'm thinking we need a Dream Weavers card this morning. So this is the Dream Weavers Oracle by Colette Baron Reed. And as I believe we are in the dream weaving time of the year, this will be a really good addition, I think, to help us understand the energies that are happening over these next couple of days. Ay, ay, ay. So, card number 13. This is an interesting card. All the willows know your name. All the willows know your name. Look at that card. Interesting, right? All the willows. Number 13 is a 4. 13 itself is a sacred number, and 4 suggests balance, right? Needing balance. So let's read this one. The essential meaning of the card is being witnessed and seen by another, being understood, the flexibility of healthy relationships and interdependence. It's such a beautiful feeling to know that you are truly seen by another or by a whole community. When you are known, accepted, and witnessed by others, you have a wonderful sense of connection and communication. You feel the grounded safety of belonging. That's a very Cancer trait, right? These are the kinds of relationships present in your life now, and they provide you with plenty of room to grow. This sense of connection rises from a space of transparency, honesty, trust, and radical self acceptance. Um, you naturally invite others to see you as you see yourself in the fullness of your expression. When you shine, it comes from a true desire to share, and that is compelling and attractive to others who can appreciate you. Know that right now you are seen, witnessed, respected, appreciated, and accepted. You don't have to look for approval, for you already have it. Remember that you shine on behalf of the divine. And isn't it amazing that all the willows know your name? Doesn't that feel good? I love it. All the willows know your name. All right. Take that with you this week. I wish you all a wonderful day, a fabulous week. I will see you on Friday. I do believe this Friday, the 17th, we will have Pia and Cullen joining us from the Pleiadian-Earth Astrology. Yay, I've missed them. It'll be good to have them back with us. So we'll look forward to that. Take care, everybody, and bye for now.